of the Instill education supply, and he is the author of 3 books, a book on time management, on the parasha, and on the Jewish festivals. Today he'll be talking to us about what is Zionism and how to stand up for your Jewish identity. Rabbi Uri Pilichowski.
Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you very much. It's wonderful to see some familiar faces. Schwarzberg. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm very impressed with Ozzy and everybody that put this event together. I'm hoping this is one of many great events. I just introduce myself. That was a great introduction, and my mother would have been very proud. I actually work for Nefesh B'Nefesh. And we opened up a new office on Monday, and the new campus is designed as an educational center, not just an Aliyah center. And I'm the senior educator at Nefesh B'Nefesh, and we educate about Zionism. And some of those things is what I want to talk about. So if you're watching or you're here because you care about Zionism. That's why you're in the room, and that's already a big step. You're the cream of the crop. There are very few people that think about Zionism, that talk about Zionism, that feel that they're Zionists. I guess like being in this building, you can't really ignore the Zionism sort of imbued in you. And it's great to recognize your leadership and to welcome it. So I feel that I'm among many people that are much greater than I am in this room, and I feel kind of somewhat inadequate talking to you, but I'm hoping that there's something I could lend to you. Last week I was actually, you mentioned that I taught at Sheck Hillel in Miami. I still do teach there. I teach there on Zoom. And last week I had a chance to visit the campus. I went there in person, and what was amazing to me is I went to Miami for one day. So I had my responsibilities I had to do, which was taking students around South Florida on a learning and lobbying mission. But then I had other responsibilities, familial responsibilities, which entail going to Target and Costco, and that's for my wife, and making sure that I picked up all the stuff that needs to be picked up. And when I was there, I was somewhat demoralized and depressed because everywhere I went in South Florida, I heard Hebrew. Which used to be a great thing when I lived in South Florida, to hear Hebrew everywhere. It was like a great feeling. But then standing in South Florida, hearing, not just seeing Jews, but hearing actual Hebrew being spoken, that wasn't a welcome feeling. As I was walking the aisleways of Target and hearing in almost every single aisle more Hebrew being spoken, and recognizing that these were not tourists, these were not Israelis there on tourists, but these are people that lived in South Florida, and almost every single waiter at every restaurant that I went to spoke to me in Hebrew, and which doesn't happen here. Ironically, right? When I'm here, they speak to me in English. And so it harkened back to something that I've always had a problem with, and I'm going to start talking about it and then come back to it, which is the famous song, Ein li Eretz Acheret, right? I have no other land. It's understood by most Israelis as something of pride, right? Ein li Eretz Acheret, this is my land, right? I have no other land. I'm proud of this land. But I also think there's a sense of almost less than ideal to it. In halacha, we'd call it b'di evet. I'm here because Ein li Eretz Acheret. I have no other land to go to. That's why I'm here. If I had another land, then I'd definitely go there. And that's the first time I heard Ein li Eretz Acheret, I heard, the cynical, pessimistic person I am, I didn't see it in the positive light. I saw it in more of I have to be here because Ein li Eretz Acheret. When I first moved to Israel, so I live in a place called Mitzpeh Yericho, which is not the center of Anglo life that, let's say, Modi'in, Ra'anana, and Beit Shemesh are. And so when I got there, my neighbors were very enthused to see an American make Aliyah and come to Mitzpeh Yericho, and they didn't see too many Olim at that point. Now, thank God, it's become more popular. Our mayor is even, our Yoshev Rosh is even an American, and people were gracious and told me how great it was that I had moved to Israel and how wonderful Aliyah is and how they can't believe I would leave America and how great America is, and I would come. And then somebody said to me something that was like you have those comments that people make offhand that are like a stab in the heart. And they said to me, it's great that you came, but you'll never really be one of us. I was like, wow, okay, why? And they say, because you have an American passport. And if things get really bad, you can leave. You can go somewhere else. We're stuck. We have nowhere to go, and that really hurt because making Aliyah was a very for me was a very meaningful and significant move in my life where I was saying, no, this is my land, this is my place, so I don't want to go. I don't want to go somewhere else. And just because I have an American passport doesn't mean that I'm ever planning. I don't keep it so that there's a place that I can go to. It just happens to be that's where I was born. So yeah, I guess in a way I do have a place I could go to, but if it ever happened that I would have an emergency situation, I don't know if I would use my American passport to escape this land. This is my home. This is my land. It's my home just as much as anybody else's, and home is your home. We came on Nefesh B'Nefesh's 50th flight, which should have been like a huge tekes and everything and a very large ceremony, but it wasn't. It was before Corona, the only flight that didn't have one of those big ceremonies because we came during Tzokei time. And during that summer, so because of weird other situations, the media had gotten a hold of me. You can look at the tefillin story is what got me in the eyes of the media. And then so then they already had a person that was moving to Israel during the midst of a war. And we were doing about 7 media interviews a day about this from outlets all around the country. And somebody was interviewing us as our lift was being taken, like as the movers were. In the background, you see men carrying off boxes and the TV stations there. And they said, you're moving during a time of war. Why would you do this? And I said, because it's home. And you're always safest at home. Even if your home's attacked, you're always safest at home. So you always want to go home. And that's what Eretz Yisrael meant to me. It was home. Israelis have lived, and when I say Israelis, I'm not differentiating between American Olim and Israelis, but I'm saying we as a people, Israelis, have lived against threats over and over in 48 and 67 and 73 and 82, and intifadas of 87 and 2001, Scuds during the Persian Gulf War, Lebanon in the Second War in 2006, 6 now heavy flare-ups in Gaza, suicide bombings, school shootings, and a nuclear threat by now 3 different countries, 2 of which we've taken care of and 1 we're on the way. And yet, through all of that, including this morning, we have never seen a major fleeing of Israelis. We've stuck it out. We've stuck it through. We've always said that this is home, and no matter who's going to attack us, no matter what they're going to do, we're going to stay here. This is home. We're going to stick it out. We're not going anywhere else. And that's a tremendous thing. And I have a close friend who I adore and think that he's one of the greatest thinkers in Israel. He's a writer for the Times of Israel named Chaviv Redigur. And he has a theory about what the Palestinians are getting wrong about us. The Palestinians are told that we are colonialists. And they're told that, like all colonialists, eventually we will leave. Eventually, this is because we have it's a place we are temporarily, where eventually when things get bad enough, like all colonialists throughout history, we will go somewhere else. Where this will not be the place that we will stay. So all they have to do is keep trying to move us out, and eventually we will move out. Eventually we will be sent somewhere else, and we'll leave. So all they have to do is keep making it bad enough for us, and eventually we'll leave. But what they don't understand, and this is Chaviv's point, is that Ein li eretz acheret. There is no other place to go. Israelis don't have a place that we could go. Sure, I could take my American passport, I could go, and many people in this room could leave, and many Israelis could leave. But the general populace, most Israelis, would not have a place to go. So since we have no place to go, it doesn't make a difference how bad they make it for us. We're still just going to stay. So this idea that they've been indoctrinated with and told that if they just keep resisting enough, we'll leave is actually false. We won't leave because we can't. Ein li eretz acheret. Which brings me to a point which is not going to be the point of my talk, but is a point which is the United States Free Waiver Program. So for years I've lobbied, and not about this, but I've lobbied members of Congress and members of the Senate and taken my students into the White House to lobby. And every once in a while, a member of Congress will bring up this free waiver program. For those that don't know, Israelis in the room definitely know. But Americans never really understand this. We just go by our embassy here and see long lines and never understand what they're for. But if you're Israeli and you want to go visit the United States, it's not easy. You have to apply for an appointment, and then if you get an appointment, which today takes about a year to get, you then have to wait online for an interview for a visa. And if a State Department foreign officer interviews you and sees that they think that, okay, you're not going to be somebody that's going to overstay their visa, they will grant you a visa. But to get that interview, you, number one, have to be accepted for the interview and then wait all day long outside of the embassy online. It's a very arduous process, which is why so many Israelis, when they go on vacation, don't go to the United States. They go to Southeast Asia, they go to different places, rather than the United States, because it's so hard. And a lot of, when this is brought up in front of my students, in front of other people, people just assume that the reason why it's so hard for an Israeli to get a visa to America is because the State Department has always been historically pro-Arab. It's always been anti-Semitic, and the feeling among the State Department is going to be, well, we shouldn't let the Jews come in, right? That's the idea. So we've got to limit it, and then we're going to make it very hard, and that's actually not true. I've spoken to many Jewish members of Congress, and the problem is something that we're all familiar with, which is if you go to any mall in the United States, so what are you going to be faced with as you walk through the mall? You're going to be faced with the Israeli who's overstayed their visa, is trying to make their fortune selling you Dead Sea salt products. And if you just try this lotion, so every State Department official goes to the mall on Saturday and they go shopping, and they're inundated with these Israelis attacking them. And then on Monday, they sit down and try to figure out, should we allow them to participate in the free waiver program where Israelis won't need a visa to get into America? And then the answer always is, we're crazy if we would ever grant them this visa, because then we'll just have every single kiosk and every single mall and every single street inundated by Israelis, and we can't allow that to happen. So Americans have always feared, the American government has always feared, that Israelis will inundate them and overstay their visa. And that's a legitimate fear. That's something when American Congress people have asked me, do you think that's really something to fear, that Israelis will leave en masse? My answer is yes. I really do think that could be a problem. And that really speaks, and this is the point of why I bring all this up, it really speaks to the work that we need to do. I'm not blaming anybody beforehand or looking at Israeli society in a critical way, but I think we, the people in this room, and the people watching, have a lot of work to do, which is we need to re-inspire Jewish Israelis, whether they're born here or they moved here, to be more Zionistic. I don't think that we're as Zionistic as we think we are. And we have to be Zionistic to the point where we're willing to sacrifice in order to stand up for our Zionism. We need to be here, and we need to have a sense of inspiration about our Zionism. That's crucial. It's not a joking matter. Entire nations and empires have fallen because people aren't as inspired to stay, just to stay, even when things get tough, when housing prices are too much. If you permit me to read, just for one small moment, a quote from Abraham Lincoln, which he says as follows: "At what point, then, is the approach of danger to be expected? I answer, if it ever reach us, it must spring up amongst us. It cannot come from abroad. If destruction be our lot, we must ourselves be its author and finisher. As a nation of freemen, we must live through all time or die by suicide." Lincoln is referring, obviously, to the United States of America. This is often misquoted as the following quote: "America will never be destroyed from the outside. If we lose our freedoms, it will be because we have destroyed ourselves from within." And I think that doesn't just apply to Abraham Lincoln. It applies to us here in Israel. Lincoln is talking about America, a great nation that's built on great ideals, and Israel is just as great of a nation built on just as great ideals. And that's what we have to worry about. We've stuck up against enemies. We've made sure that intifadas and wars have not broken us and have ensured that we stayed. And as much Hebrew as you hear in Florida, there's more Hebrew here spoken. Most of us have stayed. The great overwhelming majority have stayed, and more have come. This dream has grown and grown and grown. And that's something that's incredibly important. And we risk, if we're not constantly inspiring ourselves in our Zionism, we risk losing that. At home and in school, our core message must be to teach our children about the importance of the land of Israel, about nationhood, about Zionism. Most importantly, we have to instill a sense of pride in who we are as Israelis. The combination of love and pride will keep our people in the land. All too often, and I think this is really important for a conference like this, we've replaced Zionism with pro-Israel reactionary activism, I'll call it. We've said that instead of being Zionists, we have to be pro-Israel. We've lost that sense of Zionism, but the meat of the matter is Zionism. That's what we're all about. We're about Zionism. We're not about being pro-Israel. We're about being Zionism. We're not about worrying about Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and what they're saying. We're not worried about Jewish Voices for Peace and their next absurd event that they have, and if not now's latest post. We play defense against Palestinian provocateurs, but we're forgetting the pride in who we are and what we stand for. We stand for a free Jewish people with self-determination in our own land. We stand for a strong Jewish people able to thrive, grow, and strengthen itself. We are Zionists, and we should be proud. Zionism isn't a dirty word. Zionism isn't something to be ashamed of. It's not something that we need to explain. Zionism is something that we need to be proud of, and it's a dream that we need to keep dreaming. All too often, and notice it among yourselves in your social media posts, in your speeches, and in your activism, we tend to shy away from the word Zionism. We tend to be somewhat embarrassed by the word because we've allowed other people to define what Zionism is for us. But we have to have a sense of pride in what this whole country and movement is all about. We need to strengthen ourselves in our Zionism. We need to talk about Zionism, about the fact that we should be proud of the nation that we've built. We're Jews, so we complain all the time. But we shouldn't when it comes to Israel. Yes, there's a lot of things that have to be fixed here. There's a lot of things, but that's our duty. That's our job. That's what it means to create a great nation. What a democracy is all about is noticing our flaws and improving on them. So here's my challenge to everybody. Instead of just reacting, let's be proactive. Let's rededicate ourselves to Zionism. Talk about Zionism in a positive way, in a way of pride, in a way where we sense, okay, 4,000 years ago, Abraham was the first Zionist. He was the one that came to the land and was given the dream of having a free people in the land, his descendants. The Jews of Egypt enslaved, what were they dreaming about? What was it that they, at nights, when they got back after back-breaking labor, what did they dream about? My grandfather, laying in his bunker in Auschwitz, if I could go to him and whisper in his ear, your great-grandchildren will grow up in a free Medinat Yisrael, a land of Judaism, of Zionism. Would he have ever believed that this dream had come true? But the dream isn't over yet. It's for us to strengthen and to grow it. Thank you very, very much for having me.